Hey everybody, Madison here with Health by Ratio. My team and I, consisting of licensed physical therapists, corrective exercise specialists, and functional health coaches, work together to create holistic programs for our clients to get them out of recurring and chronic injuries and pains and get them progressing toward their athletic and or fitness goals. So we're bridging the gap between rehabilitation and fitness. We want to make sure that we're living the sustainable and active lives that we desire. And I want to talk about in this video exercises pertaining to knee stability so that we can help either prevent or recover from injuries to the ACL or the meniscus or the MCL, the patella tendon, even the lateral components of the knee, anything that's getting tweaked, sore, or has been torn and we're repairing from or we're trying to prevent. These are very key exercises that translate to any active individuals, whether a full-blown athlete competing in a sport like tennis or football or basketball, whatever, something along those lines, or our runners out there, our avid hikers, people that just like to walk the dogs on a regular basis. These are truly functional exercises that translate to how we actually use our body, because many of us that have had issues with our knees have probably gone to physical therapy. Maybe we've done some YouTube searching and we've seen a number of kind of go-to exercises that often are kind of good foundational work, but they don't necessarily fix the issues at hand that are causing our knee sorenesses or knee injuries. And so because of that, we end up chasing symptoms, and we have to rest for a period of time. We get healthy enough, then we start our hikes again, we start our runs again, we start training for our sport again, and then that knee gives way and we have to go back to the drawing board and let it recover and rest. And so we go through these like big ebbs and flows that we want to get out of. And so we're going to talk about today how to get truly functional techniques going so that our body can actually sustain the positions it needs to, so this knee can stay happy. So that's what we're covering. But before I get into those few exercises that are a little bit more on the advanced side, we're going to give some progressions to them. I want to first say that with regards to any component of the body, whether it's the knee, the ankles, the back, the hips, whatever, when we're working with somebody, it is never just the knee's fault, and we're never just jumping right into exercise. We got to combine this with some great strategic mobility work, because almost always when we're having imbalances or we're having deviations in how we're moving that's impacting joints on the body, then there has to be something going on with certain muscle tissues being too weak, hence what we're going to be working through on some functional exercises today in this video, but also things that are often too tight or sticky, not mobile enough, and don't have the right range of motion to even move the correct way. So it's really important that we address the full body imbalances, whether mobility restrictions or strength weaknesses, and address them both simultaneously so that our body can be getting truly a holistic approach on the movement side of getting us back to where we need to be. That is why we offer our 2 free consultation calls. And the first call is set up to be just like a quick phone call for 20 minutes or so to get on the same page with what your body has been through over the years, what your goals are, and what you've tried in the past to work through, so we can get on the same page with, like I said, your health background and future goals. And then the second call is where you and I connect over a full hour-long video assessment, and we go through a number of movement analyses, range of motion tests, gait tests, all kinds of stuff. I want to see how you're walking. I want to see how you're squatting, you're lunging, you're hip hinging. I want to take a look at your ankles and your hips and your shoulders and your thoracic spine and yada, yada, yada. We look at everything to see what's going on with this body so that we can game plan on that call a holistic approach on the mobility side and the exercise side to get your body moving back to full range of stable motion. So if you're interested in that, we're going to have a link below this video with a direct link to our calendar where you can book a time that works best for you, and we can't wait to see you there. But without further ado, let's jump into some great functional exercises, because like I said, many of us that have been dealing with knee issues have gotten the full gambit of like our go-to, maybe clamshells. Maybe we've been busting out a bunch of clamshells over the years. Maybe we've also hit a ton of bridges. Maybe we got fancy with it and got a resistance band around the knees. So we got some glute medius activation with some band abduction. as we did some glute bridges. That's a great one. Then maybe we got into some band walks. Maybe we were going into some band walks or some monster walks with a band around our knees or a band around our ankles. All those kind of fun exercises. Now, like I said, there's a time and a place for these, and they're not bad for foundational work for working on the outside of the butt, the glute medius, which is needed in regards to keeping the knee stable because most of these injuries stem from a position called knee valgus. Whether we're running, whether we're jumping, whether we are stopping and planting and changing direction in whatever activity or sport we're doing, it stems from the tendency for either our foot to turn out to the side, which often has to do with some stuff happening at the hips and the ankles in terms of the mobility side. And it's causing us to constantly turn our foot out to the side. And then the knee tracks straight ahead. So I'm kind of over exaggerating this. We're not normally this extreme, but while we're running and we have this foot turned out and the knee going straight ahead, there's this point where my knee is going inside of my big toe as I'm stepping through. That's called knee valgus. Anytime that knee goes inside of the big toe. Or it could be that I'm have the foot straight ahead, and as I'm descending down, the knee tracks inside of that big toe. So it's angling inward there. So it could either be that the knee is going straight, but the foot's out, or it could be the foot's straight, but the knee is going inward. Either way, we're getting this kind of shearing effect that can grind down the meniscus, the whole thing. It can get into the MCL, it can get into the ACL, both of which are things that I personally have injured and torn. And luckily, they weren't full blown grade 3 tears where I didn't have to do surgery. And I had the option to rehab my own body. And I was able, with some of the exercises we're about to show, I was able to actually do this without any surgery, and my knees are amazing. I like they were freak accidents. One was skiing, and the other one was just a like hitting a pothole with the knee fully extended, like kind of freak things. And I was able to rehab them with this kind of work that we're about to do. But it all stemmed from that knee valgus tendency that sheared this stuff. Also, it can aggravate the outside of the knee because as my knee buckles in, the outside of this knee often, like, we start everting the foot if we're pronating, and this whole thing tenses up too. So it can be linked to all of the areas of the knee. So knee valgus is the thing that we're trying to correct. Well, often that stems from a glute medius weakness, which is the outside of the butt that's in charge to basically push the leg this way. And if we have a weak glute medius, then we got to strengthen that thing so that it can have the ability to fight that knee's tendency to go inward. Now, there's also some stuff that we can do at the ankles. And so often when people have knee injuries, they're going to be doing some ankle stability work as well. We're going to combine both the glute medius and the ankle in one with the few exercises that we're about to cover. But that's why the thought process goes towards clamshells and bridges and band walks and all that kind of stuff. But the issue with these exercises is I can do as many band walks as I want. I can do as many clamshells as I want, but did it teach me how to run any better? Or now can I go hike Half Dome? No, like this doesn't I'm not going to walk up Half Dome like this. So it doesn't actually translate to adjusting how I'm walking or hiking or running or cutting or anything like that. It's just literally strengthening up my glutes. So how can we bridge that gap? How do we take the steps from the general physical therapy or general rehab techniques we need to strengthen up these important tissues and then translate it to movement that we use? Hence, we're now going to jump into proprioceptive exercise. Proprioceptive exercise is a fancy term that basically means we are going to use some outside forces. And it doesn't necessarily, like, we can also do this body weight, but in this case, I'm using some outside forces here to pull on me in a certain way that if all I think about is fight that pull, if I just resist it, my body is going to fire the tissues that I want without me even thinking about it. So it just proprioceptively is responding and waking up all the stuff that I need to. So in this scenario, I have a band. This is a light super band, but you could use a TheraBand or a light resistance band. Just like attach it and make it a circle so it can actually wrap around your knee, and have it pulling my knee to the inside. And I'm going to do a few different versions of this in progression. So I'm going to start with the easiest and work my way up to the hardest here. So I have this wrapped around my knee, pulling me inward. So it's pulling me in the direction of that knee valgus. My job as I do these exercises is to fight that band. I'm not going to let it pull my knee inward. I'm going to keep this knee, as a matter of fact, in alignment with the mid to outside of my foot. I'm almost trying to err on pushing the knee toward my pinky toe. The other thing that I want to do, I'm going to be keeping my foot straight the whole time, and I want to have it active, meaning I want to try to pop my arch up and have a tripod going along the bottom of that foot. Basically, I want the pad of my big toe on the ground. I want the pinky toe driven into the ground. I want the heel on the ground, the outside of the foot, but I want to feel like my arch is popped up. So how I do that is I squeeze my glute and kind of screw my front hip into the ground. And when I do that, you'll see my knee is tracking toward my pinky toe there. So that's perfect. That's where I want it to be. Excuse Stella barking in the background. Okay, that's where I want it. And I have that glute medius, that outside of my butt, stabilizing my knee, and I can feel it popping that arch up in my foot. Beautiful. Now I'm going to get into a little bit of a staggered stance. So I'm up on my back toes a little bit here. Not in a big stride yet. I'm relatively narrow. I'm going to do what's called the staggered stance squat. So I'm going to have just my hands here, and I'm going to squat down, bending both knees and sticking my butt back on my heels here and keeping that knee in alignment with the mid to outside of my foot. Keeping my shoulders pinned back, and now as I stand up, I'm going to squeeze this glute to drive me straight up vertical, nice and tall. Squatting down, coming right back up. At no point am I going to allow this band to pull my knee inside here. I'm keeping that thing to the outside the whole time, stabilizing this guy, getting my ankle stabilized, getting my glute medius active through my glute medius activation. All good. Now, just from the side angle, I wouldn't have this. It's not bad to have the band pull you this direction, but this isn't necessarily for this exercise the way we're trying to stabilize the knee. But just so you see this from the side angle, here's my staggered stance as I squat. I'm bending both knees. I'm sticking my butt back on my heels. And then as I'm standing up, I'm squeezing this glute. When the band's pulling me forward like so, there's the culprit of the barking. When the band's pulling me forward like so, this is a different version of a proprioceptive exercise. It wakes up the glute maximus more, which is awesome too. If you got a dead butt, if you're not able to get that thing to activate, get the band pulling your knee straight forward, and that's a trick to get that thing a little bit more active there. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's get back to fixing this knee valgus tendency. The next version of this exercise is not a staggered stance squat, it's an actual lunge. And we can do this in a couple of different ways. I want to make sure I don't hit my coffee table behind me, but we can step back into our big staggered stance first from the get-go and just get stable here. Same thing, I'm screwing that front hip into the ground, waking up the glute. I got my front foot active here. And now I'm going to keep my torso upright this time, bending both knees. I'm lunging down and then just coming up. So that's kind of the easiest way because I get to be just nice and stable with my feet in their positions the whole time. I can also create some movement to this where I'm stepping in and out of this motion. Same thing, every time I step back, I got to make sure that I keep that knee stable, not allowing that band to pull me inward. Honey, Missy, if you're watching this video, just know that this is a trick of the camera. I'm editing this. I'm not actually putting my dirty shoe up on the coffee table. But otherwise, you can get even more bonus points if you put your foot up on something behind you so that it's a little bit elevated, something around like 12 to 24 inches off the ground or so. Like a coffee table is a perfect height, hence why I'm not using it right now. And I'm going to screw my hip into the ground, getting that knee in alignment. And now I'm going to do the same idea as the lunge. It's just because my back foot's elevated, I don't get as much support from the back leg. I got to do a lot more work on this front leg as I go in and out of this. Bulgarian split squat is the full word for that. Okay, so that's the staggered stance version of it. That is the lunge version of it. And now the most difficult variation is a single leg stance, where you can have a dowel next to you or a broomstick, something along those lines, to help you balance with this, to get a feel for it first. That's allowed. or you get bonus points, obviously, if you can do this without. But you get your one leg behind you and just bent. Then we're going to get into activated standing on that plant leg. So I got to make sure that I screw that hip into the ground. I'm squeezing that glute. I want my foot active. And now I'm going to do a single leg squat, keeping that knee in alignment with the pinky toe. And the real challenge with this is to try to keep your hips as level as possible when you do this. It's very easy to either let the hip drop as we go down, to let the leg collapse behind us as we go down, or for us to shift all of our weight to the side away from it. The goal is to try to keep the hips as centered as possible the whole time and level as possible. You're not going to be perfect. That's okay. This is a challenging exercise, but we're going in and out of this. And then obviously without your dowel and going in and out without assistance would be the final progression. But these variations of knee valgus fighting proprioceptive exercises translate to how we're actually running, or how we're hiking, or how we are stopping and changing directions. And so they're teaching the glute medius to work with the ankle stabilizers. That's why it's really important to work on that foot position and trying to keep that arch popped up the whole time. We don't want that arch to collapse and for our knee to go inward with it. So we're working on ankle and hip stability to keep that knee where it needs to be in a functional way. So again, guys, this needs to be done with good mobility work as well. If the ankle is consistently collapsing inward and we're doing what's called pronating, and there's a tissue that's tightened up in that direction, we got to address it. Otherwise, it's going to keep pulling our ankle in that direction. If we have active muscles or gunked up muscles around the hip flexors or the inner thighs, the adductors or the hamstrings that are pulling the femur to the inside and yanking us there, and it's not even allowing the glute medius to turn on, then we got to address those as well. That's why it's important to have a good holistic approach. It doesn't have to take forever. It can be 10 to 15 minutes a day, but doing that a little bit every day and chipping away at these important areas that are above and below the area of concern resolves the whole body's alignment and gets us into a really functional and holistically healthy position. So if you're interested in getting free help, like I said, click the link below. You'll see our calendar there. You can pick a time and day that works best for you, and we'll be happy to get on the same page with what you're looking to achieve, and then do the appropriate assessments to see how your body's moving and give you a free guideline of what you need to do to get it moving back to full range of stable motion, like we've done with literally thousands of our clients. Talk to you soon.